The leather-bound journal sat in a locked drawer at Kensington Palace for months after Diana's death. Paul Burrell remembered the day he first saw it, a Tuesday afternoon in 1995, when Diana had left it open on her writing desk. He'd walked into her sitting room to deliver afternoon tea, and there it was, her handwriting flowing across cream-colored pages. "Paul," Diana had called out from the doorway, her voice sharp. She'd rushed over and closed the diary quickly, but not before he'd glimpsed a few words. "Charles told me today that if I'm sorry, ma'am," Burrell had said, stepping back with the tea tray. "I didn't mean to." No, it's all right." Diana had softened immediately, touching his arm. These are private, very private. If anything ever happens to me, Paul, I need you to make sure." She'd paused, her blue eyes searching his face. "Promise me you'll keep them safe. Don't let them destroy what I've written. The truth matters. Do you understand?" He'd promised. Of course he'd promised. But standing in her empty apartment in September 1997, holding that same diary in his trembling hands, Paul Burrell realized he had no idea what he'd actually agreed to protect. The first entry he read was dated July 29th, 1981. Diana's wedding day. "Today, Charles and I married. I was amazed at how many people were watching. 900 million, they said. I wore the dress. I smiled. I said the words. But all I could think about was what happened 2 nights ago." I found another photograph of Camilla in his diary. When I asked him about it, he said, "Diana, you're being ridiculous. She's just an old friend." But the way he said her name, Camilla, like it meant something. Like it meant everything. I wanted to call it off. I told my sisters I couldn't do it. Sarah said, "Your face is on the tea towels, Diana. It's too late to back out now." She was joking, but she was also right. How do you tell 900 million people that you've made a terrible mistake? So I walked down that aisle. I said I do. And now I'm Princess of Wales. But tonight, on what should be the happiest night of my life, Charles is taking a phone call from Camilla. I can hear him through the bathroom door. "I wish you were here," he's saying. "Not to me. Never to me. To her. I'm 19 years old. I'm married to the future King of England. And I've never felt more alone in my entire life." Burrell closed the diary and sat down heavily on Diana's sofa. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows of Kensington Palace, dust motes floating in the golden light. Everything in this room still smelled like her, Chanel No. 5 and fresh flowers, and something else, something uniquely Diana. He knew he should call someone. The executors. The Spencer family. Someone official who would know what to do with a dead princess's diary. But Diana's voice echoed in his memory. "Don't let them destroy what I've written. The truth matters." Paul opened the diary again, turning pages carefully. There were hundreds of entries, spanning 16 years of marriage and separation. Some were short, just a few lines about appointments or phone calls. Others went on for pages, Diana's handwriting getting more frantic as emotions spilled onto the paper. He found an entry from October 1981, just 3 months after the wedding. "I started making myself sick. Not on purpose at first. I was just so anxious about everything that food wouldn't stay down. But then I realized it's the only thing I can control. They control what I wear. When I appear in public, what I say, how I smile. But they can't control what happens in the bathroom after I eat." Charles noticed today. I was in the loo at Balmoral, and he knocked on the door. "Diana, are you all right?" he asked. I said yes. He didn't push. I think he was relieved not to deal with it. That's Charles. He doesn't want to know about unpleasant things. He wants everything to be pleasant and civilized and proper. But I'm not pleasant right now. I'm terrified and alone, and I can't stop throwing up and nobody cares. The Queen says I need to settle in, that I'm experiencing adjustment difficulties. She makes it sound like I'm a difficult employee who can't follow the rules. But I'm not an employee. I'm a person. I'm a 19-year-old girl who made a terrible mistake, and now I'm trapped." Burrell's hand shook as he turned more pages. He'd known Diana struggled with bulimia. Everyone close to her had known. But reading her describe it in such raw detail, seeing the pain spelled out in her own handwriting, made it somehow more real, more devastating. An entry from December 1982 caught his eye. William is 2 months old today. I'm supposed to be deliriously happy. The heir and the spare, that's what they call it. My job is done. I produced a son. The line of succession is secure. But I'm not happy. I'm exhausted and frightened, and Charles barely looks at me anymore. He came to the hospital when William was born, stayed for 20 minutes, then left to go play polo. Polo. On the day his son was born. I asked him why he couldn't stay longer. He said, "Diana, I have commitments. The world doesn't stop because we had a baby. We." As if he had anything to do with it beyond the initial act. I'm the one who carried William for 9 months. I'm the one who went through labor. I'm the one getting up at night to feed him. Charles just shows up for photographs. I love William more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. When I hold him, I feel like maybe everything will be okay. Maybe this is why I'm here. Not to be Charles's wife. I've failed at that. But to be William's mother. I can do that. I won't let them turn him cold like they are. I won't let them make him think this is what love looks like. Burrell found himself crying. He'd held baby William. He'd seen Diana with both her sons. He'd watched her transform from a frightened teenager into a fiercely protective mother. But he'd never understood how early that transformation had started. How quickly Diana had realized that her marriage was a sham and her children were her real purpose. The diary entries from 1985 took a darker turn. Charles told me today that if I don't stop making scenes, he'll have me committed. We were at Highgrove, and I'd confronted him about spending the weekend with Camilla. Again, I wasn't even angry. I was just asking why he bothers pretending anymore. Why he doesn't just divorce me and marry her like he obviously wants to. He got that cold look in his eyes. The one that means he's about to say something cruel. "Diana," he said, "you're becoming hysterical. If you continue this way, I'll have no choice but to consult with doctors about your mental state." Do you understand what I'm saying? I understood perfectly. He was threatening to have me declared insane, to take William and Harry away from me, to lock me up somewhere while he goes on with his life. I didn't make a scene. I just nodded and left the room. And now I'm writing this down because I need proof. I need someone to know that I'm not crazy. That Charles is the one who's cruel. That all of this, the bulimia, the anxiety, the depression, it's because of how they treat me, not because there's something wrong with my brain. If something happens to me, if they try to take my boys, someone needs to know the truth. Paul's stomach churned. The threat of institutionalization, the gaslighting, the systematic destruction of Diana's confidence and credibility. It was all here, documented in her own words, dated and detailed. He turned to an entry from February 1986. "I've met someone. His name is James Hewitt. He's a riding instructor, and he's teaching me to ride properly. But it's more than that. He talks to me, really talks to me, not about royal duties or proper protocol or what I should and shouldn't do. He asks me how I'm feeling, what I think, what I want. When I'm with him, I feel like Diana again. Not Princess Diana, not Charles's wife, just Diana, a woman who's allowed to laugh and be silly and feel attractive. Is it wrong to want to feel attractive? Charles hasn't touched me in months. He barely looks at me. But James looks at me like I'm beautiful, like I matter. I know this is dangerous. I know if anyone finds out, it will be a scandal. But I need this. I need to feel human again. I need to remember that I'm more than just a pretty doll they dress up for photographs." Burrell flipped forward, finding more entries about James Hewitt. Diana wrote about him constantly in 1986 and 1987. The entries were passionate, desperate, full of guilt and justification in equal measure. Charles is Camilla. He's had her our entire marriage. He goes to her house. He calls her constantly. He keeps her photograph in his wallet. But I'm supposed to be faithful. I'm supposed to sit quietly while my husband flaunts his mistress in front of everyone. James makes me feel alive. When I'm with him, I can forget about Charles and Camilla. I can forget about the palace and all their rules. I could just be. But by 1988, the entries about Hewitt became more complicated. James is getting possessive. He wants more than I can give him. He wants me to leave Charles, to make a scandal, to run away together. But he doesn't understand. I can't leave. William and Harry need me. If I run off with my riding instructor, the palace will destroy me. They'll take my boys. They'll paint me as an unfit mother, and I'll lose everything that matters. I told James we need to end it. He didn't take it well. He said if I loved him, I would choose him. But love isn't that simple. Love means choosing William and Harry. Even if it means being miserable. Even if it means staying in this nightmare of a marriage. Paul checked his watch. It was getting late. The executors will be calling soon, wondering about Diana's personal effects. He should stop reading. He should lock the diary away and call the lawyers and let them decide what to do with it. But he couldn't stop. Diana's voice was so clear on these pages. Her pain, her strength, her desperate attempts to make sense of an impossible situation. He found an entry from June 1989. Had a long lunch today. Oh, to feel like a woman again. See, has ignored me for months and I am suffering greatly. Well, no more. He told me I'm beautiful and desirable. He said Charles is a fool for not appreciating me. I know this is reckless. I know I'm playing with fire. But God, it feels good to be wanted, to be seen, to matter to someone. Then, just a few months later, October 1989, I was spotted last night. Someone saw me leaving the restaurant and now see. And his mother are furious. They're not furious that I was with someone else. They're furious that I got caught. That's all they care about. Appearances. What will people think? How will this look? The Queen called me in for a meeting. She sat there in her study, surrounded by her corgis and her authority, and told me I needed to be more discreet. Not faithful, not committed to my marriage, just more discreet. The family reputation must be protected, she said. Your behavior reflects on all of us. I wanted to laugh. Their precious reputation is built on lies. Charles has been sleeping with Camilla for years, and nobody says a word. But I have lunch with someone, and suddenly I'm destroying the monarchy? I didn't laugh. I just nodded and said, yes, ma'am. Because that's what you do. You nod, and you smile, and you pretend everything is fine. Even when your marriage is a lie, and your husband hates you, and the only thing keeping you sane is knowing your sons need you. Paul stood up, pacing Diana's sitting room with the diary in his hands. The sun had set, and the room was growing dark, but he didn't turn on the lights. He just kept reading, entry after entry, year after year of Diana's pain. An entry from November 1991 stopped him cold. Andrew Morton came to see me today. He's a journalist writing a book about me. He wants to tell my story, the real story, not the fairy tale the palace peddles to the press. I told him everything, about Charles and Camilla, about the bulimia, about the suicide attempts, about how lonely I've been, how frightened, how desperate. He said people need to know the truth, that I've been suffering in silence for too long, that the world should know what the palace has done to me. Part of me is terrified. If this book comes out, there's no going back. The palace will never forgive me. Charles will hate me even more than he already does. The Queen will see it as the ultimate betrayal. But another part of me doesn't care anymore. Let them hate me. Let them see me as a traitor. At least the truth will be out there. At least people will know I'm not the crazy, unstable woman the palace makes me out to be. I have to do this. For myself. For every woman trapped in a marriage like mine. For William and Harry. So they'll understand someday why I had to fight back. Burrell remembered when Diana, her true story came out in June 1992. The scandal had been enormous. The palace had scrambled to deny Diana's involvement, but everyone knew. Everyone understood that Diana had finally fought back. He turned to March 1992. This was what he'd been dreading. The entry Diana had mentioned in passing once, late at night, when she'd had too much wine and was feeling particularly vulnerable. There's one entry, she told him, that Charles can never see. Never. If he finds out what I wrote that night, Paul would destroy him. It would destroy everything. Burrell found it. The handwriting was messier than usual, like Diana had been writing quickly, desperately, trying to get the words out before she lost her nerve. Charles and I had a meeting tonight. Private. No staff. No buitnices. Just the two of us finally being honest about our marriage. I thought it would be cathartic. I thought we could finally stop pretending. Be adults about this. Admit the marriage is over and figure out how to move forward for William and Harry's sake. But Charles, oh God, Charles said things I never imagined he could say. Things that showed me who he really is beneath the polish and the protocol. I asked him if he ever loved me. Ever. Even for a moment. Even on our wedding day. He looked at me with those cold eyes and said, Diana, you need to understand something. Our marriage was never about love. It was about duty, about producing heirs, about maintaining the monarchy. You were suitable, young, virginal, from the right family. That's all you needed to be. So you never loved me? I asked. I love Camilla, he said. Just like that. So matter of fact. I've always loved Camilla. You were the obligation. She was the choice I wasn't allowed to make. If you're asking me to apologize for that, I won't. I did my duty. I married you. I gave the monarchy 2 heirs. I played my role perfectly. The fact that I had to betray the woman I actually love to do it doesn't make me the villain here. It makes me a victim of circumstance. I couldn't speak. He actually believes that. He believes he's the victim. Not me. Not the 19-year-old girl he married knowing he was in love with someone else. Him. But it got worse. So much worse. Do you know what the real tragedy is? Charles continued. It's that you were so young and naive that you actually believed the fairy tale. You thought princes and princesses really fall in love. That royal marriages are about romance. You thought I would sweep you off your feet and we'd live happily ever after. And when you realized the truth, that this is a job, not a love story, you couldn't cope. You fell apart. The eating disorder, the affairs, the constant neediness. You made everything so much harder than it needed to be. I was 19, I whispered. Exactly, he said. You were 19 and ridiculous and completely unprepared for this life. And instead of growing up and accepting reality, you threw tantrum after tantrum. You tried to make me feel guilty for loving Camilla. You punished me by taking lovers of your own. You went to the press and humiliated the entire family. And for what? Because I couldn't give you the romance, novel marriage you thought you deserved? I started to cry. I couldn't help it. And Charles just watched me with this expression of tired contempt. This is exactly what I mean, he said. Always so emotional. Always crying. Always making everything about your feelings. Do you know how exhausting it is being married to you? Then divorce me, I said. Let me go. Let me take the boys and disappear, and you can marry Camilla and live your perfect life without me. Charles's face changed then. Got harder. The boys stay with me, he said. You think I'll let you take the heir to the throne? You think you have any power here? Diana, you seem to have forgotten your place. You're the mother of my children, but you're not their parent in any meaningful sense. William will be king someday. He belongs to the monarchy, not to you. And if you push me, if you try to take them, I will destroy you. I will use every resource at my disposal to prove you're an unfit mother. The eating disorder, the affairs, the emotional instability. How do you think that will play in court? I've never been so frightened in my life. Not frightened of physical violence. Charles would never hit me. But frightened of what he could do with his words. His power. His complete lack of love for me. I hate you. I said. Good, Charles replied. At least we're finally being honest. He left after that. Just walked out. And I sat here in this room, shaking, realizing that I'm married to a man who sees me as an obstacle. A problem to be managed. A vessel who served her purpose by producing children and now just needs to fade away quietly. But I won't fade away. I can't. William and Harry need me. They need at least one parent who actually loves them unconditionally, who sees them as children, not as future kings and spare heirs. Charles will never see this entry. I'll hide it away with all the others. But someday, someone needs to know what he said. How cold he is. How little he cares about anyone except Camilla. This is the man who will be king. And God help us all. Paul closed the diary, his hands trembling so badly he nearly dropped it. No wonder Diana had been so frightened about this entry becoming public. It wasn't just devastating, it was explosive. If these words ever got out, Charles's reputation would be destroyed. The careful image he'd built of himself as a dutiful prince trapped in a difficult marriage would shatter. This entry showed Charles as cruel, calculating, emotionally abusive. A man who had knowingly married a teenager he didn't love, used her to produce heirs, then blamed her for having feelings about it. The phone rang, shattering the silence. Paul jumped, nearly dropping the diary. He let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it stopped. He knew what he had to do. Diana had asked him to protect these diaries, to make sure the truth wasn't destroyed. But she'd also been terrified of this particular entry becoming public. She'd said it would destroy Charles. Did Charles deserve to be destroyed? After what he'd said to Diana, after 11 years of emotional cruelty? But then Paul thought about William and Harry. They were just teenagers. Did they deserve to read these words about their father? Did they deserve to know that Charles saw them as property, as heirs to be managed rather than children to be loved? The phone rang again. Paul picked it up this time. Mr. Burrell, a woman's voice, one of the Spencer family's lawyers. We need to discuss Princess Diana's personal effects. Can you come to the office tomorrow morning? Yes, Paul said. Of course. And Mr. Burrell, we understand the princess kept diaries. We'll need those as well. Paul looked down at the leather-bound journal in his lap, at Diana's handwriting covering page after page, at her pain and fear and desperate hope that someone would understand. I'll bring everything, he said. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. Some truths were too dangerous. Some entries could never be revealed. Diana had trusted him to protect her words. But maybe protecting them meant protecting certain people from reading them. The meeting room at the Spencer family estate was colder than it should have been in October. Paul Burrell sat across from 3 lawyers, Diana's brother Earl Spencer, and a representative from Buckingham Palace, a thin man with silver hair and a face like carved stone who introduced himself simply as Mr. Fellows. Diana's diaries sat in a locked briefcase beside Burrell's chair. Mr. Burrell, the lead lawyer began, adjusting her glasses. We understand Princess Diana entrusted certain personal documents to your care. We'll need to catalog everything for the estate. Of course. Paul's voice sounded steadier than he felt. The diaries in particular, Mr. Fellows interjected, his tone sharp. We've been made aware that the princess kept rather extensive journals. These are family documents. They belong to the Spencer estate and, by extension, to the princes William and Harry. Earl Spencer leaned forward. Paul, my sister trusted you. I know that. But these diaries, they're not just Diana's story. They involve other people. My nephews, the royal family. We need to review them before deciding what happens next. What happens next? Paul repeated carefully. Whether they're destroyed, Mr. Fellows said flatly. Whether they're sealed for 50 years. Whether certain passages are redacted. These are sensitive documents containing allegations and accusations that could damage. The truth, you mean? Paul couldn't help himself. You're worried they contain the truth? The room went silent. Mr. Fellows's eyes narrowed. Mr. Burrell, I understand you were close to the princess. That closeness may have given you a distorted perspective on certain matters. The princess was under tremendous stress. She was, at times, emotionally fragile. What she wrote in private moments of distress may not reflect objective reality. She wasn't crazy, Paul said quietly, if that's what you're implying. No one is saying that, the lawyer interjected smoothly. But we must be careful. These diaries could cause immeasurable harm if they fall into the wrong hands. The press, conspiracy theorists, people who would use Diana's private pain for their own purposes. Earl Spencer rubbed his face. Paul, just let us read them. Let's see what we're dealing with. Then we can decide together how to protect Diana's legacy. Paul looked at Diana's brother, a man who hadn't protected her when she was alive, who had refused to let her live at the family estate when she'd asked, who had delivered a speech at her funeral that was more about condemning the royal family than celebrating his sister. I'll need guarantees, Paul said finally, that nothing is destroyed without my knowledge. That William and Harry will have access to these when they're older. That Diana's words won't just disappear because they're inconvenient for the palace. That's not your decision to make, Mr. Fellows said coldly. Then they can get a court order. Paul stood, picking up the briefcase. Diana asked me to protect these, not to hand them over to people who spent years making her miserable. Sit down, Mr. Burrell. Mr. Fellows' voice could have frozen water. You're making this far more difficult than it needs to be. Good. Paul stayed standing. Diana's whole life was made difficult by people like you. People who cared more about protecting the institution than protecting her. So forgive me if I don't make this easy. 3 weeks later, after lawyers and negotiations, and finally a private conversation with Prince William himself, 16 years old and grieving and asking Paul please to let him read what his mother had written, Paul surrendered the diaries to the Spencer estate. But not before he'd spent 3 nights photocopying every single page. Diana's entry from April 1993 was one of the most painful to read. William asked me today why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. He's 11 years old enough to understand separation, but young enough to still think maybe his parents will work it out. Did we do something wrong? William asked. Me and Harry? Is that why Daddy left? My heart broke. I pulled him onto my lap. He's getting too big for that really, but he let me. And I said, no, darling. No. This has nothing to do with you. Daddy and we couldn't stay married anymore. But we both love you more than anything in the world. But you love each other too, right? William looked up at me with those blue eyes. That's what parents are supposed to do. Love each other and stay together. How do you explain adult dysfunction to a child? How do you tell your son that his father never loved you? That the marriage was a lie from the beginning? That staying together was destroying you both? Sometimes love isn't enough, I said. Sometimes people are better apart than together. And Daddy and I are better apart. We can both be better parents this way. Does Daddy love that lady? William asked. The one with the funny name? Camilla. God, he knows. Of course he knows. Children always know more than we think they do. I could have lied. I should have lied. But William was looking at me with such desperate need for honesty that I couldn't. Yes, I said. Daddy loves Camilla. He has for a very long time. Longer than he loved you? Yes. William was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, that's not fair. You're much nicer than her. And prettier. And you make us pancakes. I laughed, even though I was crying. Thank you, darling. That's very sweet. When I grow up and get married, William said seriously, I'm going to love my wife more than anyone. And I'll never leave her for someone else. And I'll make her pancakes every day. I know you will, I told him. You're going to be wonderful. You're going to be nothing like. I stopped myself. I won't poison my sons against their father. I won't make them choose sides. But God, it's hard. It's so hard to watch them hurt and know it's Charles's fault. His choices, his affair, his inability to put anyone before Camilla. Harry is different. He's only 8, too young to understand the complexities. He just knows Mommy and Daddy don't live together anymore, and sometimes that makes him sad. But he bounces back faster than William. William carries everything. He's already learning to hide his emotions, to present a brave face to the world. That terrifies me. I don't want him to become like Charles, cold and distant and unable to express real feelings. I don't want the palace to turn him into another emotionally stunted royal. But how do I stop it? William will be king someday. They're already training him, molding him, teaching him that duty comes before feeling. That personal happiness doesn't matter as much as the institution. I see it happening and I can't stop it. All I can do is love him. Make sure he knows that somewhere in this cold palace system, there's at least one person who loves him unconditionally. That has to be enough. It has to. Paul remembered that conversation with William. Diana had called him afterward, crying, asking him to make hot chocolate for the boys. Extra marshmallows, she'd said. And Paul, thank you for always being here, for always understanding. He turned to an entry from August 1993. Diana's handwriting was looser here, more relaxed. Spent the day with Hasnat. We walked through Hyde Park and nobody recognized me. I wore sunglasses and a baseball cap and looked like any other tourist. It was glorious. Just being normal. Being Diana, not Princess Diana. Hasnat talked about his work. Heart surgery. Life and death decisions. He's so passionate about medicine, about helping people. When he talks about his patients, his whole face lights up. I asked him why he became a surgeon. He said, because the heart is the most important organ. When it stops working, everything else fails. But if you can fix it, if you can repair the damage and make it beat properly again, you save everything. Can you fix a broken heart? I asked. I meant it as a joke. But Hasnat looked at me seriously. Physically? Sometimes. Emotionally? He shook his head. That's harder. Emotional damage doesn't show up on scans. You can't operate on loneliness or grief. But you can be present. You can listen. You can remind someone that they're worth saving. I wanted to kiss him right there in the middle of Hyde Park. But there were too many people, too many potential cameras. So I just smiled and said, thank you. For what? For reminding me I'm worth saving. Hasnat makes me feel human again. Not a princess. Not a scandal. Not Charles's ex-wife or the woman who wasn't good enough. Just Diana. A woman who laughs and thinks and feels. I think I'm falling in love with him. Real love. Not the desperate neediness I felt with James Hewitt. Not the fairy tale delusion I had with Charles. But genuine adult love. The problem is Hasnat doesn't want the attention. He doesn't want photographers following him. He doesn't want tabloids dissecting our relationship. He wants a normal life with a normal woman. And I'm anything but normal. He said yesterday, Diana, I care about you deeply. But this life, the cameras, the palace, the constant scrutiny, I don't know if I can handle it. I'm a surgeon. I need to focus on my work. I can't be chased by photographers every time I leave the hospital. We could be careful, I said. Private. We can make it work. But even as I said it, I knew it was hopeless. There's no such thing as private when you're Diana, Princess of Wales. Every relationship I have becomes public property. Every man I date becomes a story, a scandal, a piece of entertainment for people to discuss over breakfast. It's exhausting. I'm 32 years old and I feel ancient. Used up. Like all the best parts of me have been consumed by this life, and all that's left is the performance. But when I'm with Hasnat, I remember there's more. There's still a woman underneath the princess. A woman who can love and be loved. A woman who hasn't been completely destroyed by Charles and the palace in 15 years of living a lie. I need to hold on to that. I need to believe I can still have something real. Paul wiped his eyes. He'd known about Hasnat Khan. Diana had talked about him constantly in her final years. The relationship had made her happier than Paul had seen her since the early days with William and Harry. An entry from January 1995 showed Diana's growing awareness of surveillance. My phone clicks. I know it sounds paranoid, but I'm sure of it. Every time I make a call, there's this tiny clicking sound, like someone picking up an extension. I told Simone about it. She said I'm being paranoid, but I'm not. They're listening to my conversations. Palace Intelligence, or MI5, or whoever they use to spy on people they don't trust. I called a technician to check my phones. He said everything looks normal, but he had this expression like he wanted to tell me something but couldn't, like he'd been warned not to say anything. Off the record, I asked him quietly, are my phones tapped? He looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I'm not qualified to. Off the record, I repeated. He hesitated, then leaned closer. Buy a new mobile phone every few weeks. Use payphones for important conversations. And assume everything you say at home is being recorded. Then he left quickly, like he was afraid of being seen talking to me. So I was right. They're listening, recording my conversations, building files on me. Why? What am I doing that's so dangerous they need to spy on me? Is it Hasnat? Are they worried about me dating a Pakistani Muslim? About what that might mean for William and Harry? Or is it something else? Are they afraid I know too much? I'll go public with more information about Charles and Camilla, about how the palace operates, about the truth behind the fairy tale. I've started writing things down more carefully. Important information that I need to remember but can't risk saying out loud. This diary is the only place I can be completely honest without worrying about who's listening. Sometimes I wonder if they'll come for the diary too. If palace officials will find a way to confiscate it, to destroy evidence of what really happened. That's why I've started keeping it hidden, locked away. Only Paul knows where it is, and he's the only person I completely trust. If something happens to me, Paul will make sure the truth comes out. He's promised me that. And unlike everyone else in my life, Paul keeps his promises. The next entry, from March 1995, was even more ominous. I had a meeting with someone from MI6 today. I'm not supposed to write about it, but fuck that. They don't get to control everything. He came to Kensington Palace, this bland middle-aged man in a bland suit with bland manners. He said his name was Peter something. I don't think that was his real name. We need to discuss your security, your Royal Highness, he said. My security? I don't have security anymore. The palace took it away after the separation. Exactly, which is why we're concerned. You're still a high-profile target. There are people who might wish you harm. We'd like to offer you protection. By the palace? The same people who've spent years making my life hell? No thank you. Not by the palace. By us. Discreet protection. You wouldn't even know we were there. That's when I understood. They weren't offering protection. They were telling me I'd be under surveillance whether I wanted it or not. You're already watching me, aren't you? I asked. This isn't an offer. It's a notification. Peter smiled slightly. We're watching everyone who poses a potential security risk, ma'am. I'm not a security risk. I'm a woman trying to live her life. With all due respect, Your Royal Highness, your relationships, your travels, your public statements, they all have implications for national security. We simply want to ensure that everyone's interests are protected. Everyone's interests. Not mine, though. Never mind. Your interests are included, ma'am. Liar. Peter stood to leave. We'll be in touch if we need anything. In the meantime, please be aware that your communications may be monitored for security purposes. It's standard procedure. For criminals, I said. For people in your position. After he left, I sat in my drawing room for an hour, shaking. They're not even pretending anymore. They're openly telling me I'm being surveilled, monitored, treated like a threat. What did I do to deserve this? I try to be a good wife, a good mother, a good princess, and they destroyed me for it. Punished me for having feelings, for refusing to be a silent, obedient decoration. Now they're watching my every move, listening to every conversation, building a case against me, though for what, I don't know. I need to be more careful. I need to assume everything I do is being recorded. Every phone call, every meeting, every moment. But I won't stop living. I won't let them intimidate me into silence. I'll just be smarter about it. And I'll keep writing. Because this diary is the one place they can't reach. The one place where the truth is preserved, no matter what they do to me. Paul closed his eyes, remembering Diana's increasing paranoia in those final years. At the time, he'd thought she was exaggerating, seeing conspiracies where there were none. Now, reading these entries, he understood she'd been right. She'd been under surveillance, monitored by intelligence services, treated as a security threat by the very institution she'd married into. The entry from October 1996 was the one Paul Burrell had already seen, the one about Charles planning an accident in her car. But reading it again in context of everything else, it seemed less like paranoid fantasy and more like a reasonable fear. Diana had been watched, harassed, undermined, and threatened for years. Why wouldn't she fear an accident? Why wouldn't she believe people who'd made her life miserable might want her permanently removed? He turned to an entry from May 1997, just months before Diana died. Dodie is sweet, attentive, generous. He showers me with gifts and attention and tells me I'm beautiful. It's flattering. It's fun. But it's not real. I'm not in love with him. I know that. He knows that probably. We're using each other. He gets to date Princess Diana. I get to move on from Hasnat and show the world I'm desirable. His father, Mohammed, is overly involved. He's planning things, making suggestions, pushing us together. I think he wants Dodi to marry me. Imagine Diana, Princess of Wales, marrying into an Egyptian family. The palace would have a collective heart attack. Part of me finds that appealing. Doing something so outrageous that the royal family can't ignore it. Forcing them to acknowledge that I'm free now, that I don't need their approval or their blessing. But I won't marry Dodi. He's a lovely man, but he's not the one. Maybe there isn't a one for me. Maybe I'm meant to be alone. Me and William and Harry, building our own little family unit separate from the palace. That doesn't sound so bad, actually. Being alone, but not lonely. Being independent. Being free. I've spent 15 years trying to be what other people wanted. Charles's wife, the perfect princess, the devoted mother, the humanitarian icon. Maybe it's time to just be Diana. Whoever that is. I'm going to spend August with Dodi and his family in the Mediterranean. Just a vacation. Nothing serious. Just fun and sun and a chance to relax away from London and the press and all the pressure. Maybe I'll come back with clarity. Maybe I'll know what I want to do with the rest of my life. Where I want to live. Who I want to be. I'm only 36. I have decades ahead of me. Time to reinvent myself. Time to find happiness on my own terms. That's what I want more than anything. Not a prince or a fairy tale or public adoration. Just happiness. Real, simple, uncomplicated happiness. Is that so much to ask? That was one of the last entries Diana ever wrote. 2 months later, she was dead. Paul turned to the final pages of the diary. The last entry was dated August 30th, 1997, the day before Diana died. Paris is beautiful, but I'm ready to go home. Ready to see William and Harry. Ready to get back to real life instead of this strange vacation with Dodi where we're chased everywhere by photographers. We're leaving tomorrow, flying back to London. The boys are at Balmoral with Charles, and I'm going to drive up there as soon as I land. I miss them. I always miss them when we're apart. Dodi is talking about announcing something. I'm not sure what. An engagement? I haven't agreed to marry him. I've told him repeatedly I'm not ready for that. But his father keeps pushing, and Dodi seems convinced I'll come around. I won't, but I don't have the heart to crush him completely. So I just smile and change the subject and hope he figures it out eventually. The photographers are getting aggressive. More of them than usual. They're everywhere, outside the hotel, following our car, waiting at restaurants. It's exhausting. Dodi says we'll lose them tomorrow, use the back entrance, take a different route. I don't know why we're bothering. We always get caught eventually. That's the price of being me. No privacy, no peace, no escape. But tomorrow I'll see my boys. And that makes everything worth it. William and Harry, they're my reason for everything. My purpose. The only purely good thing in my complicated, messy life. I should sleep. Long day tomorrow. Travel. Press. The boys. I can't wait to hug them. That was it. The last words Diana ever wrote. A simple expression of love for her sons. No premonition of death. No final warning. Just a mother missing her children. Paul sat in his small apartment, surrounded by photocopies of Diana's diaries, and cried. He cried for the teenage bride who'd walked into a nightmare. For the bulimic princess who'd suffered in silence. For the mother who'd fought to protect her sons. For the woman who just wanted to be happy and never quite got there. The phone rang. Paul ignored it. It rang again and again. Finally, he answered. Mr. Burrell. It was Mr. Fellows, the palace representative. We've reviewed the diaries. We need to discuss certain entries that cannot, under any circumstances, become public. The March 1992 entry, Paul said flatly. Among others. But yes, that one in particular. It contains allegations that are inflammatory, unverifiable, potentially libelous. They're Diana's words, her truth. They're the words of a woman under extreme emotional distress. They don't reflect reality, and they could cause immeasurable damage to Charles. You mean they could damage Charles? To the monarchy, to William and Harry's relationship with their father, to, to the truth, Paul interrupted. That's what you're really afraid of. Not that Diana lied, that she told the truth. There was a long pause. When Mr. Fellow spoke again, his voice was ice. The March 1992 entry will be sealed, along with several others, for 50 years. By that time, everyone involved will be dead, and it won't matter anymore. It matters now. Yes, which is precisely why it must be sealed. Mr. Burrell, I'm telling you this as a courtesy. The decision has already been made. The Spencer family agrees. Prince William agrees. The diaries will be placed in a secure vault. Certain entries will be redacted or removed entirely. This is final. And if I have copies? Paul asked quietly. The silence that followed was deafening. Do you have copies, Mr. Burrell? What if I do? Then I would strongly advise you to destroy them. For your own sake. Publishing or distributing material from those diaries without authorization would have serious legal consequences. Criminal consequences. Do you understand? I understand you threatening me. I'm warning you. There's a difference. Diana entrusted those diaries to you because she trusted you to protect her. Honor that trust by letting her rest in peace. The line went dead. Paul sat holding the phone, thinking about Diana's voice. Don't let them destroy what I've written. The truth matters. But what good was truth if no one could hear it? What good were Diana's words if they'd be locked away for 50 years? He looked at the photocopies spread across his table. Hundreds of pages. 16 years of pain and hope and love and fear. Diana's entire inner life preserved in her handwriting. The palace wanted them destroyed. They wanted Diana's truth buried forever. Paul Burrell had to decide. Honor Diana's explicit wish that the truth be protected, or honor the implicit understanding that some truths were too dangerous to tell. It would take him 6 years to make that decision. 6 years before he'd mentioned the diaries publicly during his trial for allegedly stealing Diana's possessions. 6 years before he'd reveal that Diana had predicted her own death, that she'd documented Charles's cruelty, that she'd been under surveillance by intelligence services. And when he finally spoke, the world would listen. They'd be horrified. They'd be fascinated. They'd demand to see the diaries themselves. But by then, the most dangerous entries had been sealed away. The March 1992 entry would remain a secret. Charles's exact words, the cruel, revealing things he'd said to Diana that night, would stay hidden. Some truths were too powerful to release. Even if they were real, even if they mattered, even if Diana had died wanting people to know. Kensington Palace, June 2003. Prince William sat alone in what had been his mother's study, a leather-bound journal in his hands. He was 21 years old now, a university student, old enough, according to the executors, to read what Diana had written about him. "Are you sure you want to do this?" his private secretary had asked earlier that morning. "Some of it is difficult. Your mother was very honest about her pain." "I need to know," William had said. "I need to understand what she went through." Now, sitting in Diana's chair, breathing in the faint scent of her perfume that somehow still lingered in this room 6 years after her death, William wasn't so sure. His hands trembled as he opened to a random page. April 1995. William is 12 now, nearly 13. He's not a child anymore, though I still see the little boy in his face sometimes. Today he asked me, "Mom, do you think Dad wishes he'd married Camilla instead of you?" The question broke my heart. Not just because the answer is yes, of course Charles wishes that, but because William already knows. He's known for years, probably. He's just never asked out loud before. "Your father and I, we weren't right for each other," I told him. "But that doesn't mean either of us regrets having you and Harry. You're the best thing that ever came from our marriage." "That's not what I asked," William said. He has this way of cutting through evasions, of demanding honesty even when it hurts. I asked if Dad wishes he'd married her. What do you tell a 12-year-old? Do you protect him from painful truth or give him the honesty he's asking for? Yes, I said finally. I think he does wish that. But William, that's not your fault or Harry's. That about Dad and me and choices we made before you were even born. William was quiet for a long time. Then he said, when I get married, I'm going to marry someone I actually love. Not someone the palace chooses. Not someone suitable. Someone I love. Good, I told him. You should, and you will. How do you know? Because you're not your father. You're better than him. Kinda. More emotionally honest. You'll make different choices. I shouldn't have said that last part. I shouldn't poison William against Charles. But God, it's true. William is already more emotionally mature than his father has ever been. He feels things deeply. He lets himself be vulnerable. He hasn't learned yet to shut down the way Charles did. I just hope the palace doesn't teach him. I hope William stays warm and open and capable of real love. I hope he doesn't become another cold royal going through the motions of marriage without ever actually connecting to his wife. He deserves better. They both do, William and whatever woman he eventually chooses. William wiped his eyes. He remembered that conversation. He'd been angry at his father for years by that point, angry about Camilla and the way Charles treated Diana. His mother had always tried to be fair, always tried not to turn her sons against their father. But she'd also been honest when William asked direct questions. He turned back several years, finding an entry from December 1988. William is 6. He came into my dressing room this morning while I was getting ready for a charity event. I've been crying, another awful phone call with Charles, and I was trying to fix my makeup so no one would notice. Mummy, why are you sad? William asked. I'm not sad, darling. Just tired. You're sad. Your eyes are red. Children see everything. They know everything. We think we're protecting them by hiding our pain, but they feel it anyway. They just don't understand why we're lying about it. William climbed onto my lap. He's getting too big for that really, but I pulled him close anyway. Sometimes grown-ups get sad, I said, even when they don't want to be. Is it because of Daddy? My heart stopped. How'd he know? He's 6 years old. How much does he understand? Why would you say that? I asked carefully. Because you're only sad after you talk to Daddy. And you don't smile at him anymore. Not like you smile at me and Harry. I didn't know what to say. How do you explain adult dysfunction to a 6-year-old? How do you tell your son that his father makes you miserable without making him feel caught in the middle? Daddy and I, we have some problems right now, I said. But that has nothing to do with you and Harry. We both love you more than anything in the world. Do you understand? William nodded. But then he said something that made me want to cry all over again. When I grow up, I'm going to make you happy, Mummy. I promise. I'll take care of you. Oh, darling, no. That's not your job. You're the child. I'm supposed to take care of you. But you're sad. Someone should make you happy. You do make me happy. You and Harry. You're the best thing in my whole life. William hugged me tight. I love you, Mummy. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. After he left, I sat at my dressing table and sobbed. My 6-year-old son is worried about me. He's trying to take care of me. He's promised to make me happy when he grows up. That's not right. That's not how it's supposed to be. Children shouldn't have to worry about their parents' happiness. They shouldn't feel responsible for fixing broken marriages. But William does. He feels everything. He carries everything. And I don't know how to protect him from that without lying to him, and I won't lie. Not about this. He deserves honesty. I just wish the truth wasn't so painful. William closed the diary and stood, walking to the window overlooking the palace gardens. His mother had known. She'd known he was carrying too much, feeling too much, trying to fix things that weren't his responsibility to fix. And she felt guilty about it, even though none of it was her fault. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Harry stood in the doorway, now 19, looking uncertain. They said you were reading Mum's diaries, Harry said. Can I see? William handed him the journal. Be prepared. It's hard. She was in so much pain, Harry, for years. And we saw some of it, but not all. Not nearly all. Harry sat on the sofa, opening to a different section. His eyes scanned the pages, and William watched his younger brother's expression change, from curiosity to sadness to anger. She wrote about me here, Harry said quietly. From 1990. I was 5. Harry is different from William. William carries everything, every emotion, every problem, every hurt. But Harry is like sunshine. He bounces back from things. He laughs easier. He doesn't brood the way William does. I worry about William constantly. I worry he'll internalize all this dysfunction, that he'll grow up thinking this is what marriage looks like, that he'll become damaged by watching his parents destroy each other. But I worry about Harry for different reasons. I worry he'll learn to use humor as armor, to hide his real feelings behind jokes and mischief, to never let anyone see when he's actually hurting. Today at breakfast, Charles barely acknowledged Harry, just walked right past him without saying good morning. Harry's face fell for a second, just a second, and then he smiled and said something silly about his cereal, making me laugh, deflecting from the hurt. "Daddy's busy," Harry said cheerfully. "He has important Prince things to do." But I saw the hurt underneath. I saw it, and I couldn't fix it. Both my boys are learning to cope with having a father who's emotionally absent. William by carrying everything. Harry by pretending nothing bothers him. Neither strategy is healthy. But what can I do? I can't make Charles love them the way they deserve to be loved. I can't make him present, engaged, interested in their lives. All I can do is love them enough for both parents. Give them enough warmth and affection that maybe, somehow, they'll grow up believing they're worthy of love. God, I hope it's enough. I hope I'm enough. Harry's hands were shaking. She knew. She knew I was pretending. She knew everything, William said softly. She saw everything. And she loved us anyway, maybe because of it. "There's an entry here about Dad," Harry said, flipping forward. From 1994, after the divorce was announced. "Charles came to see me today. Not because he wanted to, but because the palace made him. We need to present a united front for the sake of the boys," they said. "We need to show we can co-parent civilly." The meeting was excruciating. We sat in my drawing room at Kensington, tea growing cold between us, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, I asked, "Are you going to marry her?" "Camilla." "Eventually," Charles said. "No point denying it anymore. The divorce is happening. Everyone knows why. The boys will have a stepmother." "Yes." "Will she be kind to them?" Charles looked surprised by the question. "Of course. Camilla is. She's very maternal." I wanted to laugh. "Maternal. The woman who destroyed my marriage is going to play mother to my children." "I need your word," I said, "that you'll protect them, that you won't let the palace damage them the way they damaged me. William especially. He's going to be king someday, and they're already grooming him, already teaching him to suppress his emotions. Don't let them turn him cold, Charles. Please." "William will be fine," Charles said dismissively. "He's tougher than you think. He's 12. He's not tough. He's wounded. We wounded him. This divorce, this whole nightmare, we did this to him." "You did this," Charles corrected. "You went to the press. You wrote that book. You destroyed any chance we had at maintaining dignity." "We never had dignity." I was shouting now, unable to contain it anymore. "We had lies. We had a marriage built on deception and duty and your obsession with Camilla. Don't you dare blame me for telling the truth." Charles stood to leave. "The truth, as you call it, has embarrassed the monarchy. Embarrassed me. Embarrassed our sons. I hope you're satisfied with what you've accomplished." "I hope you burn in hell," I said. He left without responding, and I sat alone in my drawing room, shaking with rage and grief and bitter satisfaction. Because he can hate me all he wants. He can blame me for everything. But I told the truth. The world knows now. They know about Camilla. They know about the loveless marriage. They know about the palace's cruelty. And Charles can never pretend again. He can never play the victim. Everyone knows exactly who he is. That's worth something. It has to be worth something. Harry closed the diary, his jaw clenched. He blamed her. For everything. Even though he was the one who. "I know," William interrupted. But Harry, we can't. We can't hate him. Mom wouldn't want that. How do you know what Mom would want? Because I keep reading. William took the diary back, turning to an entry from June 1997, just 2 months before Diana died. I'm trying to forgive Charles. Not for his sake. He doesn't deserve forgiveness. But for mine. For William and Harry's. Carrying this hatred is exhausting. It's poisoning everything. Every time I see Charles, I feel rage. Every time he's mentioned in the press, I feel anger. Every time William or Harry talk about him, I have to work not to say something cruel. That's not healthy. That's not the person I want to be. So I'm trying to let go. To accept that Charles is who he is. That he loved Camilla, not me. That our marriage was a mistake from the beginning. That none of it was actually about me. I just happened to be the suitable young woman available when Charles needed a wife. It still hurts. God, it still hurts. But the hurt is getting smaller, more manageable. What helps is focusing on the future instead of the past. I'm building a life separate from Charles and the palace. My humanitarian work. My boys. My friendships. My identity as Diana, not Princess Diana. I'm 36 years old. I have decades ahead of me. I can't spend them angry at a man who is never capable of loving me the way I needed to be loved. So I'm forgiving him. Not because he's asked for forgiveness. He hasn't. Not because he deserves it. He doesn't. But because I deserve peace. And forgiveness might be the only way to get there. William's voice was thick with emotion. She was trying. Right up until the end, she was trying to let go of the anger. To find peace. Did she? Harry asked. Find peace. I don't know. Maybe. In her last weeks, people said she seemed happier. Lighter. Like she'd turned a corner. Harry stood, pacing the room. There are entries we haven't seen, aren't there? The palace sealed some of them. William nodded. The March 1992 entry. The one where Dad said. Whatever he said that was so terrible they couldn't let it become public. Don't you want to know? Don't you want to know what he said to her? Every day, William admitted. But maybe Mom was right to keep some things private. Maybe some truths are too painful to be useful. Or maybe, Harry said bitterly, the palace just wants to protect Dad's reputation. Same as always. Before William could respond, the door opened. Their private secretary entered, looking uncomfortable. Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been a development. Paul Burrell is publishing a book about his time with your mother. He's planning to include excerpts from the diaries. William stood abruptly. He can't. Those diaries are private. He says your mother wanted the truth revealed, that she made him promise to protect her words. By selling them to a publisher, Harry's voice was sharp. That's not protection. That's exploitation. The palace wants to take legal action, the secretary continued. But they need your approval. Both of you. Do we try to stop publication, or do we let it go forward? William looked at Harry. Harry looked at the diary, still sitting on the sofa. Their mother's handwriting. Her pain. Her truth. What would Mom want? Harry asked. I don't know, William said honestly. She wanted the truth preserved. But she also wanted privacy. She wanted people to understand what she went through, but she didn't want her sons hurt by it. We're already hurt, Harry pointed out. Reading these entries, it's devastating. But it's also, I don't know, clarifying? At least we know now. At least we understand what she was going through. William sat down heavily. If Burrell publishes, everyone will know. Everyone will read about Mom's bulimia, her affairs, her fights with Dad. They'll pick apart her most private moments. Is that what she would have wanted? She cooperated with Andrew Morton's book, Harry said. She went on Panorama. She wasn't afraid of the truth being public. But that was her choice. Burrell publishing her diaries, that's not her choice. She's dead. She can't control how her words are used. The secretary cleared his throat. Sirs, I need an answer. Do we pursue legal action or not? William picked up the diary, running his fingers over the worn leather cover. Inside were his mother's words. Her pain, her love, her desperate attempts to be understood. Let him publish, William said finally. But on one condition. The March 1992 entry stays sealed. Whatever Dad said to Mum that night, that remains private. Everything else, let people see it. Let them understand what she went through. William, Harry started. No, I mean it. Mum wanted the truth known. So let's give people the truth. Just not all of it. Some things can stay between Mum and Dad. The secretary nodded. I'll inform the palace. They won't be happy. They never are, Harry muttered. After the secretary left, the brothers sat in silence. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the palace gardens. Inside, Diana's presence seemed to fill the room. Her perfume, her journals, her love still palpable 6 years after her death. Do you think she knew? Harry asked. That she was going to die? All those warnings she gave people about car crashes and accidents. Do you think she actually knew? William turned to the diary's final entry. August 30th, 1997. Diana's last written words. I don't think she knew, William said softly. I think she was afraid. She'd been afraid for years. But if she'd actually known she was going to die the next day, she would have written something different. Something more. Final. What would she have written? She would have written to us. Told us she loved us. Given us advice for our futures. Made sure we knew. William's voice broke. Made sure we knew it wasn't our fault. That we didn't do anything wrong. That we were enough. Harry came to sit beside his brother. We were enough, weren't we? Even with all the dysfunction, even with the divorce, we were enough for her. Read this, William said, turning to an entry from March 1997. Had tea with William and Harry today. Just the three of us, no staff, no protocol. Just Mum and her boys. William is 14 now, growing into a young man. He has Charles's height and my coloring. He's thoughtful and serious and carries the weight of his future kingship, even though he tries to pretend he doesn't. Harry is 12, still my baby in some ways, though he'd hate me for saying that. He's funny and charming and uses humor to deflect from pain the way I sometimes do. We talked about school and friends and normal teenage things. And I watched them, really watched them, and thought, I did this right. Whatever else I failed at, I got this right. They're good boys. Kind. Emotionally intelligent. Capable of love. They haven't been damaged beyond repair by the divorce or the palace or the media circus of their lives. They're going to be okay, even after I'm gone. And someday I will be gone, whether in an accident or just old age. They're going to be okay. Because they have each other. And they know they're loved. Really, truly loved. Not for being princes or heirs or future kings. But for being William and Harry. For being themselves. That's all any mother wants. To know her children will be okay. And mine will be. I'm sure of it. Harry was crying now, not bothering to hide it. She knew we'd be okay. She hoped. William corrected gently. She hoped we'd be okay. And we are, Harry. We're damaged and angry and still processing all of this. But we're okay. Are we? William thought about the question. Thought about the years since their mother's death. The grief. The anger at the paparazzi and the palace and their father. The complicated process of growing up in public while mourning in private. We're getting there, he said finally. It takes time, but we'll get there. Harry wiped his eyes. What do we do with the rest of the diaries? There are dozens more in storage. Years of entries we haven't read. We read them, William said. Not all at once, but slowly, when we're ready. We read them, and we try to understand Mom better. What she went through, what she fought for, what she wanted for us. And the March 1992 entry, do we ever try to read that? William considered. Maybe someday, when we're older, when Dad is, when it can't hurt anyone anymore. But not now. Mom kept that entry secret for a reason. We should honor that. Even though we'll always wonder what Dad said, especially because we'll always wonder. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Harry stood, walking to the window where their mother had stood countless times. Do you think she'd be proud of us? Of who we've become? Yes, William said without hesitation. Not because we're perfect, but because we're trying. We're trying to be good people to use our positions for something meaningful, to break the cycle of emotional dysfunction that damaged her and Dad. That's all she wanted, for us to be better than they were. I want to kill Paul Burrell, Harry said suddenly, for selling her diaries, for making money off her pain. I know, but Mum trusted him. If she wanted him to protect these words, maybe this is how he's doing it, by making sure they can't be hidden away forever. That's generous of you. I'm trying to be generous, trying to see the best in people. That's what Mum would do. Harry turned from the window. I miss her. Every day, even after 6 years, I still miss her. Me too. The brothers stood together in their mother's study, surrounded by her journals, her furniture, her essence. Outside, the world continued. Photographers waiting at the gates, press speculating about the young princes, the palace machinery grinding on regardless of personal pain. But inside this room, for this moment, it was just William and Harry and the mother they'd loved and lost. The woman who documented her entire life in leather-bound journals, hoping someone would understand, hoping her sons would know how much she'd loved them, even when everything else was falling apart. The diary entries would eventually be published. Paul Burrell's book would come out in 2003, causing a sensation. People would read Diana's words and weep. They'd rage at Charles. They'd condemn the palace. They'd understand, finally, what Diana had endured. But the March 1992 entry would remain sealed, locked in a palace vault. The word Charles had said that night, the cruel, revealing things that had shown Diana exactly who she'd married, would stay secret. Some truths were too dangerous to release. Even 20 years later, even 40 years later, those words remained hidden. Charles became king eventually. Camilla became his queen. The monarchy survived, adapted, evolved. But in a vault somewhere beneath Windsor Castle, Diana's handwriting preserved a conversation that could never be revealed. Words that were too honest, too cruel, too real. William and Harry knew the entry existed. They knew their father had said something unforgivable, and they chose, consciously, deliberately, not to seek it out, because their mother had kept it secret. And some secrets they decided should stay buried. Not because the truth didn't matter, but because some truths, once spoken, could never be taken back. And Diana had understood that. She'd written the words down to preserve them, yes, but she'd also kept them hidden, protected them, controlled who could see them. That was Diana's final gift to her sons, the choice. The choice to know or not know, to seek the complete truth or to live with mystery, to honor her pain or to protect themselves from it. William and Harry chose protection. They read the other diaries. They learned about their mother's struggles. They understood her in ways they never could have when she was alive. But the March 1992 entry stayed sealed. A diary entry Diana never wanted Charles to see. Words that revealed too much, hurt too deeply, mattered too much to ever be made public. And in that vault, on those yellowed pages, Diana's handwriting remained. This is the man who will be king. And God help us all. The last line of the forbidden entry. The only words that ever leaked out. The rest remained a mystery. Would remain a mystery forever. Because Diana had written the truth. But she'd also protected it. That was the lesson her sons learned from her diaries. That truth mattered. But so did protection. So did choosing your battles. So did understanding that some words, once released, could never be called back. Diana had lived publicly. She died publicly. But this one entry, this one truth, she'd kept for herself. And in death, her sons honored that choice. The diary entry Diana never wanted Charles to see would never be seen. Not by Charles. Not by the public. Not even by William and Harry. Some secrets, they decided, were meant to stay secret. And in respecting that, they gave their mother something she'd rarely had in life: control over her own story.